This is the second story. It's called Mr. Rush, Mr. Brave, Mr. Grumble, and Mr. Crosspatch. Enjoy! Mr. Rush was the fastest thing on two legs. He used to rush tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and back again all the time. And of course he was always in such a rush that he never ever finished anything properly. One morning he woke up with a jump. He'd only had time for 3 hours sleep because he'd been rushing about for so long the day before. "Oh dear," he cried, leaping out of bed. "I'm late! Die!" And he rushed into his bedroom and washed not very well as he was in such a hurry, and cleaned on one tooth and rushed downstairs 3 at a time. Mr. Rush had a boiled egg and toaster and a cup of tea for breakfast. He boiled the egg for 5 seconds and it tasted awful. He toasted the bread for 1 second and so it wasn't brown at all. And as he couldn't bear to wait for the kettle to boil, he made his tea with cold water. What a horrid breakfast! And of course he was in such a rush, he only ate half of it. Rush, silly fellow! After his half of breakfast, he rushed off again, out of his front door, leaving it open, down his garden path, out of his garden gate, leaving it open too, and off down the lane. He passed Mr. Happy. "Hello," called Mr. Happy. "Good morning, Mr. Rush. Where are you off to?" "Can't stop," cried Mr. Rush. "I'm in much too much of a hurry." "I can't see that," thought Mr. Happy to himself as he watched Mr. Rush disappear due to distance. "I wonder where he's going." Where Mr. Rush was going was nowhere fast. As usual, Mr. Rush rushed around all morning and then rushed home and had a quick bite to eat the sandwich with chopped bread, and then rushed off again and rushed around all afternoon. That evening he was reading a magazine. He never had time to read a book when he saw an advertisement for a holiday. "Ooh," he said, "I'd like that. I haven't had a holiday for ages." But then his face fell. "I can't go on holiday," he thought, "because I don't have any money." And then he thought again and his face rose. "I know," he thought, "I'll get a job." And so the following morning he rushed off and got a job with a farmer milking cows. But of course he wasn't any good at that, because if there's one thing a cow any can stand, it's being rushed, especially when it's being milked. Blech. So Mr. Rush rushed off and got himself another job driving a bus. But of course he wasn't any good at that, because he was always in such a rush. He never stopped at any of the bus stops, and if there's one thing people waiting at a bus stop doesn't like, it's when the bus doesn't stop for them. So Mr. Rush rushed off and got himself another job as a waiter in a hotel. But of course he wasn't any good at that, because no sooner had he served people a meal and they did take one bite that he whisked the plate away from under their noses. And if there's just one thing hungry people can't stand, it's having food whisked away from them. Poor Mr. Rush, no job, no money. "Oh dear," he said to himself, "I'm never going to be able to go on holiday." Looked very glum and gloomy. But then an idea struck him, an idea for a job from someone who rushed around all the time. an idea job for someone who was the fastest thing on two legs. Do you know what the job was? Would you like to know what the job was? Postman! Delivering express letters. Mr. Rush was so good at it, he delivered twice as many letters in half the time any postman had ever done it before. Soon he had saved enough money for that holiday of his. And so, the very next week, there was Mr. Rush sitting on the beach in the hot sunshine under a palm tree on holiday. "This is the life," he grinned, and rushed off for a swim. His 15th that day, and then it was breakfast time. I don't know. Mr. Brave is not as strong as Mr. Strong. He is not as tall as Mr. Tall, but that does not stop him being brave, as you will soon see. Now, last Thursday, little Miss Bossy invited Mr. Brave to tea. "And don't be late!" she shouted down the phone. It was a very stormy day, but Mr. Brave knew that little Miss Bossy's temper was worse, so he set off for little Miss Bossy's house, hurrying along as fast as she could to be sure that he was not late for tea. Along the way, he heard a cry for help. It was Mr. Messy. He had been blown to the river by the wind. Mr. Brave did not want to be late for little Miss Bossy, but being the brave fellow he was, he jumped in and rescued Mr. Messy. Well, wet right through, he hurried along the lane. Suddenly, he heard someone sobbing loudly. Who could it be? It was little Miss Somersault. She was balancing on a tightrope tied between two tall trees. "Oh, Mr. Brave, I'm so lonely," she sobbed. "Nobody will come and play on my tightrope. All my two riders of hits. You're so brave. Will you come and join me?" Mr. Brave looked up at little Miss Somersault. Then he thought about little Miss Bossy, but being the brave fellow he was, he took pity on little Miss Somersault and climbed up on the tightrope. Then they chatted away happily for a while until Mr. Brave happened to tuck down. "Little Miss Somersault, look! The rope is going to snap. We're going to fall. And it's such a long way to the bottom. Oh, calamity! Oh, help!" he cried out in panic. "Be brave, Mr. Brave," said little Miss Somersault. And without more ado, she carried him safely back down to the ground. "Oh, thank you," said Mr. Brave with a smile of dismay. Little Miss Somersault said goodbye, and Mr. Brave was left on his own, shaking like a leaf. "I don't deserve to be called Mr. Brave. I was scared still. Thank goodness nobody knows my secret," he said to himself. And nobody does know his secret, or do they? Little Miss Trouble just happened to be passing and had seen everything, and what she had seen and heard had given her an idea, a very naughty idea. She grinned a mischievous grin. "Hey, come here, everybody, come and see this," she shouted at the top of her voice. Very quickly, a large crowd gathered. "I have an announcement," another woman's trouble. "Did you know that Mr. Brave isn't brave at all?" "No, it can't be true," said the crowd all together. "It is true," said little Miss Trouble, "and I prove it to you." "Mr. Brave," she continued, "I dare you to walk across that light rope." Mr. Brave looked out at the tiger, and all the crowd looked up at the tightrope. Then all the crowd looked at Mr. Brave. Mr. Brave suddenly remembered something, a very important something. Just look at the time, he cried. I'm going to late for tea at Wilbur's Bossy's. Bus dash, he cried, and he ran off as quickly as possible. Hooray! Cried the crowd, and then all crowd all about Mr. Brave Wilbur's trouble looked puzzled. Why are you all cheering him? She cried. He ran away, he isn't brave at all. Oh yes he is, they all shouted. Will you turn up late for tea at Little Miss Bossy's house? Yay! Wilbur's trouble thought for a moment. Gosh, he is brave after all, said an Ailey. Mr. Grumble's name suited him well. Bah! He would grumble every morning when his alarm clock rang. Ding ding ding! It's the start of yet another day. Bah! He would groan every afternoon his walk in the country. I had to go decide. One day, just after he said this, someone suddenly appeared by magic. It was a wizard. A wizard to whom Mr. Grumble had the nerve to say, Bah! I hate wizards was suddenly appeared by magic. Really? Said the wizard. Well, I don't like people who are constantly grumbling and moaning. I'll tell you what I do to the people who had my banners. I turn them into little pigs. And the wizard disappeared, leaving behind him a very piggy-looking Mr. Grumble. Mr. Grumble was afraid that he might remain a pig for the rest of his life. But 5 minutes later, by magic, of course, he changed back into his old self. He sat up again and happened to pass Miss Frances' house. Come in, she cried. I'm having a party. Mr. Grumble went in, but when he heard Miss Frances singing and laughing, he scowled. Bah! He moaned. I can't stand singing and laughing. He would have done better to have kept quiet, because the wizard appeared once more. I see that my first lesson wasn't enough, he said. If I'm going to teach you to stop grubbing around, groaning and moaning, I have to do more than turn you into a little pig. I have to turn you into a big pig. Mr. Grumble did not like it one bit. Little Miss Fun and her guests, however, found it very funny. Ooh, this is funny. Yeah. Please, begged Mr. Grumble, turn me back into normal. I promise I will never grow and moaning again. And he feebly wiggled his curly tail. The wizard took pity on him, changed him back to his old self, and then the wizard disappeared again. Then little Miss Fun jumped onto a table and pretended to be a clown. Mr. Grumble was not amused. Bah! He snored. I can't stand people who jump on the tables and pretend to be clowns. You can guess what happened next. He turned into an enormous pig. An enormous pig whose face was red with a remembrance. Wink! Went Mr. Grumble mournfully. Then this enormous red-faced pig made a solemn promise. Never again will I grumble or snort. Good, said the wizard, suddenly appeared once again, and Mr. Grumble changed back into his old self. Well, not exactly his old self. Look at that nice smile on his face. Amazing, isn't it? Later, Mr. Grumble went home and tired out after his exterminating day. He went straight to bed. He slept the whole night without once grumbling, groaning, moaning, and snorting, but not without snoring. Shoo. In your opinion, why does Mr. Crosspatch's house look like this? Can you see? Mr. Crosspatch has beaten with up because there's no to fun with. So let's wonder why this hole is hurt. Don't you think? One day, Mr. Crosspatch met 4 daisies. I know what would you better than this any no more. I promise. I'm Mia. That's final. For now as I'm just gonna find. Wah! The 4 daisies smiled. They had a hard time believing. A worm will live in Mr. Crosspatch's garden appeared. What are we looking for today? Yes, Mr. Sneer. Just a chestnut. One wood more and will win your neck, said Mr. Crosspatch. He clenched his fists, but he had no time to fight with the worm. Carelessly, the worm vanished underground. Then, Mr. Crosspatch met Mr. Strong. Calm down, no fighting today, he said aloud. Let me carry your basket. That's nice of you, but I'm afraid you're not Dinah, replied Mr. Strong. Me not Dinah, said Mr. Crosspatch. We'll see about that. And he clenched his fists, and he waved, and he rushed towards Mr. Strong. Ticka. Oh, that hurts! Little Miss Careful passed by. You must be more careful, she said to Mr. Crosspatch, holding out her hand to help him recover. What business is of yours? He yelled, and he stepped on his own, and he clenched his fists, and he waved and ran straight into a tree. Well, a gentleman does not fight with the ladies. Oh, that hurts, said Mr. Crosspatch. Oh, cried Wilfred the Wizard, who fell out of the tree. Then the magician said, Mr. Crosspatch, you'll be in trouble if you continue to fight everything like that. Bad is stronger than me, muttered Mr. Crosspatch. Abacadabra, said Wilfred the Wizard. What do you think he did next? No, he didn't magic Mr. Crosspatch's fists into toffees or rotten potatoes. Instead, he whispered, Follow my good advice. Turn your tongue 7 times in your mouth instead of yelling. Cross your hands behind your back instead of hitting the first thing you see. Dinosaur. Mr. Dizzy arrived at that very moment. There's no risk I will fight with you, murmured Mr. Crosspatch. Very good, said Wilfred the Wizard. No elephant, cried Mr. Dizzy. Look at my beautiful ball. It's blue. I pulled it in the tree for you to admire. And he placed it on the ground. But your ball isn't blue, it is green, said Mr. Crosspatch. No, it's blue, yelled Mr. Dizzy. No, it's green. It's blue. It's green. It's blue. It's green. Mr. Brawler will see red, thought Wilfred the Wizard. Indeed, Mr. Brawler saw red. Mr. Crosspatch saw red, but he remembered the advice of Wilfred the Wizard. Quickly, he turned his tongue 7 times in his mouth. Quickly, he crossed his hands behind his back, and even more quickly, he gave the ball a masterful kick. Abacadabra, truly lay.